Hello, everybody. I am the ever presumptuous pre-Dr. Bennett, and today we will be going through vroom vroom cars, Khan Academy's critical analysis and reasoning skills practice questions. So I went through their list, and it started out with like cars overview, foundations, and a bunch of other worked examples, things like that. So the first passage that I thought actually was like a normal passage was the practice living in a rational society passage. I will also warn you, I am sick right now and trying to just get that content out to you good people. Okay, so living in a rational society. When it comes to cars passages, I do tend to read through everything. I will go down and look at the first question just to see if it is something that can be answered immediately, directly. That is purely just a time issue. If I can cut down the time a little bit and keep my mind clear answering one question that specifically points to one paragraph or something, then I'm going to try to do it. The first question here said, the author's argument suggests that the primary motive of employers who make humans work with machines is to. So just by that and the title of this passage, I kind of understood that, okay, this is maybe about automation in the workforce being like a rational, logical thing for a society to do. Full disclosure, I did do this passage already, and I did horrible on it. I am notoriously bad at cars, but we're going to get better at it together. So, as I read through this, I noticed the paragraph that is paragraph 1, 2, 3, when it talks about fast food restaurants have preferentially recruited adolescent help. So it says because they surrender their autonomy to machines. And I thought, okay, that's where it starts. You got to talk about surrendering autonomy to machines, automation in the workplace. And the author's argument suggests the primary motive is to, and when I looked at the answers, I thought, okay, improve quality of the products? Absolutely not. Avoid seeming behind the times? Absolutely not. Those don't make any sense if you read through the entire passage, which I recommend you all do before you listen to this. So then you have reduce the cost in wages and benefits. Reducing the cost in wages and benefits makes sense, right? Because that's what you're trying to do, right? You want to pay kids less money to not have to, and then they don't mess up, and you don't have to give them benefits. And then I saw increase the uniformity of procedures. Well, when I went back through the passage, I did notice that I would have been assuming that they were trying to reduce the cost of benefits. I don't think they ever said they were trying to reduce the cost of, the cost of employees, like wages. They did say the costs, they talked about like turnover rate and training. They did say somewhere in here that they could pay kids less. However, they definitely didn't talk about benefits or even like a career or anything like that. That wasn't the point. And when they say increase the uniformity of procedures, that's what automation is, surrendering autonomy to machines because machines can do that. Therefore, that was the correct answer. So, next question. A common thread in the discussion of fast food and the discussion of suburban housing is that people today, so obviously after going through, I did go through the whole passage before I began to answer these. So people today are increasingly resistant to the regimentation of life. That kind of seems like the opposite, because if we're going to these fast food restaurants and we're going to the suburban housing model where everything is kind of cookie cutter and you get 5 options or something like that, we are increasingly allowing regimentation of our lives. So that one kind of went out on me. People expect their needs to be met at the lowest possible cost. Yeah, possibly. They did say that, things are cheaper and fast food restaurants are trying to lower their costs constantly of all these different things, like making chairs that hurt after sitting in them for like 20 minutes. Then I had allow themselves to be treated as interchangeable. And yeah, I mean, that could be it. Allow themselves to be treated as interchangeable. We absolutely are. And it was kind of interesting at the end of this passage, they were talking about a bit more of like a a personality change in people. They talk about Steven Spielberg and how people like seeing his movies where it's like a normal suburb and then something crazy happens because they connect with that normal suburb so much. So maybe that doesn't mean that they allow themselves to be interchangeable or treated as interchangeable. And then D, are unable to discriminate among products that differ in quality. They didn't talk about that at all, so that one can go right out. So at this point, I'm only looking at either expect their needs to be met at the lowest possible cost or allow themselves to be treated as interchangeable. So I got this one wrong initially, but now that I look back on it, I see they expect their needs to be met at the lowest possible cost. They never talked about people's expectations in this whole passage. However, allow themselves to be treated as interchangeable. That means with you knowing about the fast food industry and about the movie industry, or well, not necessarily the movie industry, but the housing industry, when you know about those in the passage, you are the fly on the wall for them. You can see that they are treating people as interchangeable. Therefore, people are happily accepting it. So they are allowing themselves to be treated as interchangeable. Okay, third question. So information from the passage suggests that a rationalized travel agency would emphasize. Okay, a rationalized travel agency. So we're talking about travel agency type of issues, and rationalizing it meaning like making it autonomous, making it cater to a lot of people, making it just kind of milquetoast in uniform, basically. So first answer, planned tours to popular attractions with accommodations at large hotels. Okay, so planned tours, that's definitely it. They would want to plan things probably. And to popular attractions, that would be enticing for a lot of people, a wide swath of people, with accommodations at large hotels to maybe pay a lot of money and or to just accommodate a lot of people. So that one seems pretty good. Okay, the next one, computerized systems to provide low-cost, customized itineraries. So the computerized systems definitely stuck out to me. However, when they say customized itineraries, that's almost what I consider to be like a post-rational travel agency, maybe. When, and now we have computers to do very customized things at extremely low cost. Whereas before, you would need humans to do it, and it would be a higher cost. So in this case, I would say that one's probably out. Okay, personnel trained to make reservations, but with little experience as travelers. So this one is stuck in there purely to make you think, oh, they're talking about the same way that they would have adolescents, just teenagers, at all these fast food restaurants. However, this answer does not say anything about automation. It says nothing about rationalization. All it's saying, if you keep that analogy, all it's saying is we're hiring the teenagers to work in restaurants. It doesn't say we're hiring teenagers to operate the machines in these restaurants. It just says we're hiring them to operate the restaurant. So in this case, we're hiring personnel with little experience as travelers. So that one kind of just didn't feel right, didn't make sense. And then the last answer, procedures that encourage problem-solving initiatives by managers. I read that one time, had no idea what they're talking about, and immediately picked the first answer, plan the tours to popular attractions with accommodations at large hotels. That one made perfect sense to me. Okay, last question. Suppose that the employee responses to working conditions in fast food franchises in paragraph 4. So this one, finally, they give me like a specific paragraph to go to. So suppose that the employee responses also apply to entry-level assembly line workers. In this light, or in light of this information, the author's main point in mentioning these responses is, okay, so you're saying, you're equating maybe entry-level assembly line workers to the fast food employees that we were mentioning before. So that means that things are getting automated, things are getting more predictable, more, higher turnover of employees. So immediately I would think, well, this author is trying to kind of is trying to say that this is happening to these fast food franchises and these employees. Therefore, if it is happening somewhere else due to a similar type of rationalization, it would be strengthened. So I can immediately rule out the two weakened, and I just look at the strengthened. So it's strengthened since predictability and employee turnover are associated in another context. That it like defines what they're talking about. The predictability and employee turnover, which were two of the big things, maybe not the predictability, but at least the employee turnover was a big issue with the fast food people. Or the other answer, strengthened since low wages and job dissatisfaction are associated in another context. This one was very hard. I will be honest, I got it wrong. I picked strengthened since low wages and job satisfaction are associated in another context. However, the correct answer is strengthened since predictability and employee turnover are associated in another context. Now, this makes complete sense to me. It was my second guess. I got down to those two. But I suppose, well, if I look at Khan's hints, here we go. So I'm reading Khan's second hint. The passage uses the fast food industry as an example of how employees are often unhappy with jobs that force them to follow strict routines and prevent them from thinking or responding creatively to the demands of their work. The passage that uses the fast food industry as an example of how employees are unhappy with jobs. Okay, yeah. So that would be the predictability. To strict routines, preventing them from thinking or responding. That's why they hire teenagers, because they're more likely to give over to the autonomy. Okay, so predictability is mentioned in there. This job's dissatisfaction, in turn, leads to high employee turnover. If this pattern is also seen in another context, such as entry-level assembly line workers, then the author's main point would be strengthened. So let's see why he said that my first answer was wrong. So he says, the author does not discuss low wages as a source of dissatisfaction. All right, so yeah, that was, I guess the way I would define that is I was just making assumptions. Let's look in here real quick. All right, so yeah, I was making assumptions on that last paragraph. You really have to look at all of those different words. If he's saying low wages, you have to find it in the passage. If it says job dissatisfaction, you got to find it in the passage. But they did talk about predictability. With the teenagers being more likely to give over their the autonomy to the machines, and employee turnover was definitely talked about. That was very prominent. All right, strong work, gang.